friendships that I had when I was younger. I think a lot of my friends will look up to me and say, hey, oh, you're too cocky, or you're too hard, or you're not a nice person. And as I grew older, and now that I'm a lot older, I think that there's methods that you can use to kind of translate your mentality and your competitiveness to your teammates, which is kind of what it is now in the professional. I think that there's ways where you can, instead of saying, throwing the F-bomb to somebody, or saying you're not good, or you're this, you can be like, hey, look, like this is what we got to do. This is what we got to do to win, etc. So I think that for me, I learned that, and in my younger days, that I wanted to make it, and I just knew that I had to be the best everywhere I went. It didn't matter if I was playing on a Sunday league for fun, or if I was playing 4v4 with my friends at the park. Like, I just wanted to be the best, and I didn't really care what I had to do it. I think that was my mentality growing up.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think, thinking about where you went to Westmoor High School, obviously in Daly City, and playing at the club level. When we were growing up, there was no such thing as a development academy and everything. There was no such thing as NorCal Premier. It was everyone played in one league, and in some respects, it almost simplified things so much. Where if you were a top club and a top player, you gravitated toward these top teams in the state. And when you would get to the top 4 or 5 teams in each age group, like that was the best of the best, right? And I think in some respects, the way that it's structured now, my frustrations with U.S. soccer, and the way I think we're almost too divided, and it almost makes more sense to go back to where it's just one body, and there was promotion relegation within, and the best players went to those top teams and really battled it out. So that's interesting. Talk to me about your when you're trying to get into college, the talks that you're having, the process that you went through. We'll get to the transferring process first, but talk to me about out of high school. Were you looking to go pro? Were you focused on going to college? What was that like?
Yeah, so that was my idea. Out of high school, we had agreed with my family that, when I finished high school, that I was able to decide what I wanted to do for myself. At the time, I was getting recruited by a couple of colleges. I think Northwestern was one of the colleges that I had talked to the most, and they were D1. It was a great school, and I was getting a full ride at the time. UCLA, I had San Jose State, Santa Clara. There was a couple of schools around the country, but I wasn't really regarded as a high prospect coming out of high school. Like, I wasn't really, I wasn't getting calls from every single school. Like, some players had, the opportunity and the luck to get, scholarships from this school, and they can choose and pick where they wanted to go. Mine were pretty limited. I think one of the reasons was because I was small in high school. I wasn't the tallest. I wasn't, the fastest, and I wasn't the strongest. I think that, if you knew me from my days and I was younger, I was always really technical. I could shoot the ball really well. But I was never the fastest. I'm still not fast at all. I mean, I wish I could get faster, but that was never my strength. And I think that for college, it's such a huge, factor. They really look into physicality. How fast is this player? How far can he throw the ball? I mean, literally, I had college coaches tell me that I didn't throw the ball fast enough, or I didn't throw it far enough, because, that's really what some college coaches, that's what they want, and so I had a hard time with being able to have options going to school. So my idea was to go to Europe. So we had an opportunity to leave to Portugal to go to Sporting Lisbon to go on a trial. I think I was 16 years old. It was right before college. So I had told all the schools, I said, listen, I'm going to turn pro, or I'm going to try to turn pro. So I'm not going to be attending school. And obviously, all these schools that were giving me scholarships my junior, senior year, they had to move on and, go after someone else. So at the end of the day, I couldn't leave the country because of my status, my legal status at the time. And, it was either you leave the country for good and you figure it out, and it was a huge risk, or, you decide to somehow figure out a way to try to get back to school. This is my senior year. I remember it was 3-4 months before I graduated high school. So we decided as a family that it was probably too big of a risk because of my status. I think that if I had a legal status at the time and I could come in and out and go on trial, it would have been a different story. Which to this day, I wish that was the case, because I wouldn't have never known what would have happened in Portugal at the time. But I decided to go to school, and there was really only one school at the time that still decided to take a chance on me. It wasn't too late, and that was San Jose State. Which I'm always going to be grateful to Gary Smith. I mean, to Gary St. Clair, who we saw recently, which is nice. And he actually added me on Facebook a couple of days ago, which is really nice, because you know at the time when you're young, man, you don't really appreciate all these people that you run into, right? And the older you get, and when you deal with younger players, and all that, you kind of start to you know, retract yourself and say, damn, I wish, I was this way, or I wish I would have been that way. At the end of the day, I think that, he knows that I gave him my best, when I was there, when I went to San Jose State. I tried my best to be the best player that I could be. And my freshman year, I started every game, coming in. So yeah, I went to San Jose State. I got a scholarship there. If it was last minute, I was lucky to get that opportunity. And then after 2 years playing for San Jose State, I really felt like at the time I needed to find a club, or a school where I can compete for a championship, and I felt like at the time, San Jose State, we weren't the best of teams, and the conference wasn't as strong, so I wanted to challenge myself a little more. And I Paul Holliker decided to bring me on to Cal Poly, where I went on to play my last 2 years of college, which was a great idea.
Yeah, in terms of college soccer experiences on the West Coast, Cal Poly, um, with the facility that they have and the game experience, that must have been a cool, I guess, step in the right direction for you before you go on professional, because you'd get how many 3,000 people to the games?
Oh, there's more. It was 10,000 people. We would play on national television against Santa Barbara, and I mean, I mean, the point is that at that age, I think I was 17 years old. No, how old was I? No, I was like already 19. So around 19 years old at that time, anywhere around the world, you're already playing professional soccer. You're already competing in front of people, in front of fans and television and all that. But for us in college, that was like our moment, where we got to play on folk soccer. The stadium was a sellout. People couldn't even get in. We were playing against Santa Barbara, who's at the time, a powerhouse and still is, I
Big
think.
time. Yeah.
So for us, that was huge experience for me to kind of transition into the idea of what it is to kind of get a taste of what it would be like to play in the pros. And so that for me, that experience was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, and the decision actually ended up your decision to transfer to Cal Poly obviously was the right decision, because you did very, very well there your 2 years, and then getting on the Major League Soccer radar when they had the MLS combines, and you were called into the combine. Um, for the boys and girls who don't know what that is, before they get into the MLS draft, there's a combine. Used to be a combine. They used to stream it live, Junior. I remember watching because we had a few friends, you and a few other people that were going through the combine at the time. So I was able to watch all your games and all the sessions and everything, which is really cool. Talk us through that experience with the combine and the days leading up to the draft, and then obviously getting drafted and how that felt.
Yeah, so retracting a little bit, going back into a little story. When I was at San Jose State my sophomore year, Tom Simpson, which I think in the Bay Area a lot of people know who he is,
Yep.
um, kind of reached out to me because I had played for the San Francisco Seals, right? In between my college seasons. He reached out to me and he said, "Hey, listen, the San Jose Earthquakes are having a little combine. It's only for the San Jose Earthquakes is a player combine. Will you be interested in going? I know you're only a sophomore, and at the end of the day, they're only going to have seniors, but I think that it'll be good for you to just go and see what's going on." And I remember I said, "Yeah, of course, 100%." I showed up, and I think I was the youngest one at the time. Everyone was a senior at the time of the combine, and we played 2 games, and at the end of the day, we played 3 games, I think, or 3 or 4 games. I think 2 games on Saturday and 2 on Sunday. And then at the end of the day, at the end of Sunday, Frank Yallo came up to me and he said, "Hey, listen, we really like what we saw. We want to bring you into camp. We want you to come train with us." And I was in college at the time, so obviously, he knew that. And but for some reason, it was okay at the time for me to train with a professional team and still, play for my college team. So there was two of us, myself and another player, Michael Gibru, and they ended up signing him. He ended up getting a contract that same time when I was training with them. So I would literally, go to train with the Earthquakes in the morning at 8 a.m. And then I would go to my 11 a.m. class from 11 to 12. I think 12 to 1 I had a break. And then at 2 p.m. I was training with my college team, So I did that for about, I think it was about a month before, that, they were saying, hey, look, we want to sign you. But because at the time, the NCAA rules, they didn't let the MLS team just say, hey, look, we're going to take you today and sign the contract tomorrow, because you had to go through, there was rules, like, all that discovery rules and,
Yeah.
Eligibility rules, etc. So even though Frank Yellow was, willing to take me at the time, I wasn't allowed to sign with the pro team because I was in college. So
It affect your scholarship situation too, right?
exactly. So it was either I left school, or there was just a bunch of stuff that at the time I didn't understand. And now looking back at it, I think if a kid is being offered a contract to go play in the pros, it should be their choice to say, hey, listen, like, I'm gonna take a chance and do it. It shouldn't be because of there's rules and restrictions. I think that is one of the biggest problems in American football. It's just the NCAA and all the rules, So long story short, I ended up playing a couple friendly games with the Earthquakes at that time, and because apparently I had violated the NCAA rule, because you're not allowed to play with the pro team that has jerseys, etc. I got like a 3-4 game ban from my next.
I remember this. I remember this when this happened. That's hilarious.
I had to write an apology to the NCAA. I had to write, to go through all this craziness to be able to be able to literally say, hey, like, like, I'm not going to turn pro. I want to continue playing college. And that was right before I transferred out to Cal Poly, which I had to do so much stuff. And when I transferred to Cal Poly, my first 2 games, we faced San Jose State, and I couldn't play them because I was banned from the NCAA for 3 games. So I think it was the best decision for me to go to Cal Poly. I think that it put me in a different radar. Like, I think that it challenged me a lot more. It allowed different people to get to know me, not just in San Jose area and the Bay Area. It kind of broadened me a little more. And like I said, the exposure that Cal Poly got at the time and the games that we played allowed, scouts to kind of take a look at me and, kind of take a notice of me. So yeah, I get invited to the MLS Combine. I think that's one of the coolest moments in my time was when I got told that I got invited to the MLS Combine, because no one ever from Cal Poly ever even went to the Combine. I went to the Combine. I remember, there was, the top, I think I would say 100 players or 80 players in the country. All the guys that you always talk about, and before the Combine, there's all these mock drafts saying this guy's gonna go number 1, this guy's gonna go number 2. Like, my name was nowhere to be found. Like, I was just another player going to the Combine. And I remember the games were, high quality games. Obviously, you're competing with the best in the country, and I was up for the challenge. Like I said, man, every time I got a challenge, I wanted to be the best that I could. Soccer is all about perception, right? So it was either one person was gonna like me, or none were gonna like me, yeah, I ended up getting drafted by Toronto FC in the 3rd round. I think it was the 44th round pick overall, and that was my start of my career. I think that was probably the moment where I knew that I was meant for this, and all the hard work that I had been going on and doing through the time paid off. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of people don't know that when you get drafted, it's a huge accomplishment. I remember being here at home. We were watching the draft and on TV and stuff, and like, first round went by and my name was nowhere to be found, right? And we're like, man, like, I felt embarrassed because my whole family's watching, and at the time, and I'm just like, man, did I not do well? Did I do well? What's going on? Why am I not going first round? Second round goes by and my name doesn't get picked up, and I'm just like, oh man, I'm not gonna get picked. You start doubting yourself, and then I got a call, saying, hey, we're gonna. First, I got a call from Kansas City Sporting KC. Peter Vermees called me. He said, hey, listen, if Toronto doesn't pick you before us, like, we'll take you. We'll take you at 45th. And Toronto called me literally 30 seconds afterwards and say, "Hey, Junior, like, this is Aaron Winter, which was the head coach at the time. We're gonna take in the draft and just be ready because your name's gonna be called up." And that was really cool, man. Everybody was really happy. I think all my friends, everybody was
Yeah.
just a turning point in my career. But like I said, it was just an invitation to go to camp. Like when you get drafted, you don't have an automatic contract, so you still have to go to camp to fight for a spot.
Yeah, and then staying on Toronto FC, everything it seems like in your career was going according to plan, and then obviously because of your legal status in the United States, yeah, there was a huge speed bump because obviously Toronto is in Canada. Can you walk us through what happened and how that must have been the most frustrating process or time of your life, knowing that you've been drafted and called into camp and not being able to make it there?
Yeah, so I have all my stuff ready to go. I remember I was with my dad in Kamani Hill. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of Kamani Hill in the Bay Area. We were getting ready to go to camp. I was getting ready to go to Toronto FC, and he was getting ready to go to Colorado Rapids, I believe, at the time. And so we were training. We had a huge training camp before preseason. Like I think we started around the 2nd of January, and I remember I had to report to camp on the 23rd of January. So for 20 days, we trained every single day. We had double days. We had beach workouts, just getting my body strong. Getting ready to go to preseason. And I think it was like the 20th of, like a couple of days before I had to travel. They were like, "Hey, listen, can you send us like all your documents?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." So I sent them my passport, my Salvadoran passport, and I didn't know, and I wasn't really aware of the situation at the time. And like 2 days later, they go, "Hey, listen, like, are you not a citizen?" I'm like, "No, I mean, I'm sure you guys knew this, right?" And they're like, "No, we weren't aware. Like, this is a big deal. We have to like talk to our legal team. We're gonna have our lawyers call you to see what we can do. All this stuff, right?" The problem was that because I wasn't under contract and I was just going to camp, I couldn't get a work visa. Like if I had a contract, obviously I would have got a work visa in time. But because I didn't have a contract, they had to make a decision and say, "Hey, we got a guy that we like. We just drafted him. Do we want to sign him right away and give him a work visa, or do we just say we'll hold off?" They end up
Oh,
coming back and saying like, "Listen, like we're gonna have to pass. At the time we're not gonna be able to bring you to camp. So once you like figure out your legal status, um, we're gonna able to bring you back to play, to camp." And I mean that was to me, I remember I was crushed, man. I was devastated. I had worked so hard for the opportunity that I've been looking for, and then it just got taken away from me from like the next day. So, and it wasn't because of talent or because of my ability, which is because of a paper.
right.
Um, I remember I spent a whole year like talking to lawyers, figuring out my situation, which thank God eventually I was able to solve. But think about myself. I'm 21 years old at this time. I don't play for a whole year. I can't play it for a whole year. Where am I going to play? I don't have a college. I would just train on my own, and for a whole year I didn't play competitive games, right? So eventually, when my status is green light, I call him back and I say, eventually somebody would say, "You know what? I'm not gonna go back to that club." Like they literally turned their back on me. Like I'm gonna let it go. But at the time, I just saw it more as a challenge. Like what? I called them and I said, "Hey, look, I'm ready to go. You want to bring me in?" And they're like, "Yeah, we'll bring you in, and we want to take a look at you again in preseason." So I didn't play for the whole year. Literally, the start of the year. And I remember I turned 22 when I went to camp with Toronto FC to fight for a spot. And I mean, that was probably another accomplishment of mine that I felt like I showed resilience, and I was so strong-minded that it was hard for anyone to break me because I went to camp after not playing for a whole year, and I had to compete with the fresh new college draft picks that were coming out, that on the 2011, 2012 draft. And I made the team and I got offered a contract, and that's where I started my career.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And then your career's taken you in different corners of the world. You've been to Germany, you've been to Colombia. Talk to us about the difference of level and the experience of being in those Germany's a football culture that something that we can't replicate, unfortunately, in the United States. How was that?
Yeah, so I just finished my first season with Toronto FC in MLS, and I just decided I wanted to go to Germany to just train, try out, just see how it is. And I got the opportunity to go there. What it kind of first kind of turned out to be just a trip to go see how things were. It ended up being more than that, and I got to see a lot more. I even got to a point where I was training with a second Bundesliga team called Energy Campus, and I mean, talking about a kid from San Francisco all of a sudden is training. I mean, the second Bundesliga, I'm sure everyone's aware. I think for me, it's the best second division in the
Big
world.
time.
And it's you have world players at the time, and I just remember just being there and just being so grateful for the opportunity that the coach had given me at the time, and I was training. And you always kind of question yourself, right? Like, am I good for this level? Or like, am I good enough to be here? And I felt normal, and they appreciated my talent. They liked me a lot. At the time, I think there was a rule with foreigners, that you only were allowed to have certain foreigners, and other political stuff. So at the end of the day, I wasn't able to stay with them, but I was there for 3 to 4 months, and I trained every day, and I played friendlies with them, and it was a great experience, man. I saw the level of what Europe was, and how far away we were in America, when I went over there to Germany. And then I come back to the U.S. and I signed with the Silverbacks, Atlanta Silverbacks, in the NASL, which I think the NASL was a really strong league at the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, after that I went to Colombia. Colombia was the ninth best league in the world at the time. You have world stars players there again, and the level and the competitiveness of the game was a lot of fun, man. I mean, technically, like, I think that's probably the best level that I've ever seen. For a league, you had guys that were just getting ready to go to Europe. They were getting ready to be bought by all these clubs in Europe. So I had a good time there for sure.
When do you feel like you were at the top of your game, Junior? Obviously, probably your when you got your first cap with the national team, was that the height of it, and when you were getting consistently called into the national team, or when do you feel like that was?
Yeah, I mean, I think the international level is obviously the highest level, right? I think that you're competing with teams from all over the world and all these players. I think that at the time, I remember it was the Central American Cup. We had played us against Honduras. We had Mexico. We had a lot of national teams in that cup, and I think that at that time, that's when I started feeling like I'm
A footballer.
I felt normal. I felt like I can compete. I wasn't shy anymore. Like, I wasn't scared of going to play in front of 40,000 people. Like, I wasn't scared of getting into a tackle with a player that I've seen on TV. We eventually, I remember we faced, Ecuador. They had Ener Valencia, who was at the time playing in the Premier League, and we faced Colombia, and I never forget, in the tunnel before we going out, I see Falcao to my right. And I'm just like, what? Like, what is going on? I just come from San Francisco, where, like, like, we don't have any stars here. We don't have any world stars. And all of a sudden, I have Falcao to my right, and I'm about to play against him. So I think for me, that's when I started to appreciate, what I did, and that was kind of like a moment in my career where I felt accomplished. I played against James. I saw James, which is huge, by the way. Everyone thinks that he looks like a small player. This guy's massive, man. Like, his legs and his calves, and he's just a massive, massive person and a player. Wow. And so, yeah, I mean, when you play against these teams and you don't look too bad, obviously, these are world stars, and and you don't look too off your game. I think that's when you kind of say to yourself, yeah, I think that this is for me, and I felt comfortable at the time.
Yeah. So before we get to the questions, Junior, we have a quick 40-second video so the players can see the goals that you've scored. You've had some really good goals, to be fair, in your professional career.
Did not score early, I think, Trevor. I think we can say that with some assurance here. Atlanta's starting to get some shot for the goal. Oh my goodness, a goal for Atlanta.
Always good on set pieces.
Just a bonus, you know. That was Landon Donovan's first game as a coach.
Yep.
That was fun. My first header goal in the pros. I've never thought I was scoring my head. I mean, I'm still awful, but now now you have to try, right? You have to try to jump and stuff, but it's never been my cup of tea.
So let's start with the Las Vegas goal. I mean, that was your first game for Las Vegas. I remember we were talking about this. You were coaching with me at Sacred Heart Cathedral just this year, and we're trying to figure out. You were figuring out what the situation was, what was happening. You get the call from Las Vegas. Probably not too far before that, your first game with them, and you score the best goal in franchise history like that. I mean, what a cool experience.
Yeah, it was fun. You know, it was fun. I remember I wasn't really sure where I was gonna go, where I was gonna go play. I was training at the time. I trained with my high school kids that we had, which are a great group of guys. And I feel like at the time, and maybe I'm wrong, but I felt at the time, they were probably like, man, this guy doesn't look like, like he doesn't look like this guy, right? At the end of the day, like they probably want you at the time to just kind of be like literally like at the top of your game when you're literally just like trying to like get your body back in shape and
Yep.
et cetera. But yeah, I got the call. I think I went to preseason. I was in preseason for 3 weeks. I think it was because I went late. I had 3 weeks to kind of get ready to get my my body right, to get game fitness is completely different than running on your own every day, right? I think people know that. And so first game of the season, we faced Landon Donovan. Obviously, my coach Eric Wynalda played in the World Cup, and Landon Donovan played in the World Cup. They don't really like each other as much, so there was a lot of talk behind the game, and the whole United States got behind the game because of it. And it was also Landon Donovan's first coaching game in the pros, and he has a huge reputation as a player, but everybody wants to know if he can coach, right? And so we go up to San Diego, beautiful venue. I mean, sell out. It was on ESPN News, and right off the bat, I think Eric kind of comes up to me. He goes, "Listen, like, you got to stick it to him, And I'm like, "I got you." I was like, "If anything I'm good at, I could do that." So I was like, "I got you." So from the start, like the goalie from the kick, from the first whistle, he was really far out of his line. He was like maybe halfway, or maybe at the 18. And they never do that. I don't know why he was doing that. Maybe he wanted to test me or whatever. So I asked my teammate who's gonna kick the ball, to start. I said, "Hey, listen, like, I don't know, the rules have changed. Like, can I just shoot it from here, or do you have to pass it to me?" There's all these people in the
Yeah.
stadium. Like, you don't. Sometimes you just don't think about like what's going on. So he goes, "No." He's like, "Look, I'll just act like I'm stepping on it just in case. Let's be safe, And I was like, "All right, cool." So he kind of just steps on it, and I stroke it like from the get-go, like from the half field. And he kind of had to make a save, but I think that he got a little worried because if it was a little more central, I think that he would have been in trouble because of the post. So right off the bat, like I knew he was out. And then I think 3 minutes later, like right when he flicks the ball up to me, as soon as I chest
You
it,
did it again.
as soon as it takes that first bounce, I look up, I look up and I'm like, he's still a little out. He wasn't fully out like before, but he was still out enough that I was like, what, So I was like, I'm just gonna try it out, and I just kind of stroke it the best way I could possibly hit it, and he went like top corner, which was kind of crazy.
That's fantastic. That was a great goal. Last thing before we get into the questions. Obviously, the league is sounds like it's going to try to come back in June. Where is that at? I mean, what are you doing to keep yourself fit right now? And what's it look like for the season coming back?
Yeah, so obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty right now because, obviously it's a business, right? And I think that as a business, the clubs are losing a lot of money because we, our contracts are still being, respected, and we're still getting paid. So I think that like a lot of the clubs are trying to figure out like what is the next step. Um, we're supposed to get the ban for reopening. I believe the phase one. I want to say the 15th. So Friday is the first day that we're able to go train again. So I think next week we're gonna start training. With a huge protocol. Where we're gonna have like all the stuff that you have to do before you can train, but we're not gonna be able to touch anybody or play with anybody. It's just gonna be individual training, but in a professional environment. And then I believe that oh,
Sorry, I'm back.
that's okay. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. So yeah, I think that we're gonna start training. I believe next week, hopefully, with a protocol where kind of the same way MLS is doing it. You show up, you get your temperature. You can only train in a small space, but to get your body going, I think that in a month they want to start the games up again, which that's like the best scenario and the best hope. I think that at first we might have to play with no fans, but I think that and hopefully like this virus goes away soon, and or they find measurements to like be able to have public come and watch the games.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we have a few questions, Junior. If anyone has any questions, feel free to use the Q&A. Even earlier than high school, what is the best advice you would give a 10-year-old? Do you think it would still apply today, given that the way that soccer is now?
Look, I think soccer has changed drastically in America from when I was a younger player. I think that right now, for example, we're negotiating a CBA for the USL, something that has never been in place. I think that luckily MLS has a CBA, which back in the day, I don't know if you guys remember, 10, 15 years ago, players were making no money. And within time, I think now the players making really good amounts of money, and they have really nice contracts. Something that with time it got a lot better, right? So I think that like it's kind of our job, kind of the older players to kind of leave a good setup for the younger kids that are coming up. I can only see MLS in 10 years how big of a league is going to be. I can only see the USL League One, League Two. I think that it's going to become like Europe. I really believe that. Maybe not the level, but that you're going to have so much opportunity to turn pro, to have different, scenarios where you can succeed. What can I tell a 10-year-old, right? Was that the question?
Yeah, give me 1 second. What's the best advice you would give a 10-year-old?
Well, look, I think when you're 10, I think the best advice you need to do is just make sure that you trust yourself, because I think that at the younger age, you doubt yourself so much because you really rely on everyone's opinion, on your parents and your sisters, on your brothers and your friends and your coaches, right? So you might have a coach sometime that is going to not like you, or he's going to tell you, hey, look, like, I don't think you're good enough. And it's, at the younger age, we're not, mature enough to be able to say, oh, you know what, I don't mind the criticism, I got to keep going. I think that, you have to enjoy soccer. I think soccer at the young age is just a time where you need to, enjoy it, go out and play with your friends as much as you can, try new things, and, play different positions. I think that's what I would tell myself when, going back and just making sure that I enjoy myself. I play different positions, that I played as much as I can, and I watch soccer as well on TV. I think that's something I never really did. And, nowadays I watch soccer all the time because, watching something and being able to see it, it's easier for you to go on the field and kind of do it yourself. But if you just hear it and you don't really know, you never really seen it, it's tough, and so I think that watching soccer and enjoying yourself is probably the best advice I could give a 10-year-old.
Great. We have some really good questions here. What is it that you think players lack in the United States? I guess players, I guess what they're trying to say is what is one thing that young players are lacking to make it to the next level?
I think hunger. Um, I come from a very poor country, and I think that if you look at a lot of the world star players, what do they always tell you when you interview them? Like, oh, what was I wanted to have a better life, right? I wanted to, I tell my mom I don't want her to work anymore, and I want to buy my mom a home, and so for them it's mostly their hunger of being so poor and having no opportunity, and soccer was the only way for them to have a better, financial status and a better life going forward for their whole family. I think that is a huge key, right? I think that is a huge difference between outside of the United States, because here in America, I can guarantee you a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old or anyone who's watching me, they have at least 2, 3 pairs of cleats. That's just the reality, because we live in a country that has abundance, and that's good. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think if you have 10 pairs of cleats, and so be it, you know what I mean? But some guys in other countries, they don't have one pair of boots. And if they do have one pair of boots, it's going to last them 2 years, you know? So for them, it's like the mentality. Okay, they're like, man, you know what? Like, I want to be able to make it to the pros because I'm going to get free shoes, or I'm going to get a Nike deal, or I'm going to get an Adidas deal. So I think that is the big difference. I don't think it has anything to do with quality, because I've seen young players around the Bay Area and around the country that are, special and technical abilities there. I just think that the hunger based on the environment is the difference between them and the rest.
I would agree. I agree. I mean, we look at the younger, even like the youth national teams in the United States, they always do very well, man. And it comes to a point where all these other countries, these players, they want it, the hunger to continue to get better, and the hunger to become a professional soccer player is, there's one thing about saying that you want to be a professional soccer player and working, and there's another one doing it, right? And I think that's the biggest fall off in U.S. soccer, is because we do so well at those younger age groups, and then when we get into the older ones, it really starts falling off. And I think it's a lot to do with the mentality. What is your favorite individual drill to do growing up? Oh, great question. What made Junior Burgos?
Oh man, drill. I don't know. I don't know if I could say a specific drill, but I think
Was it 1v1s? Did you do a lot of 1v1s? Did you do a lot of?
I think for me it was mostly shooting. I would say free kicks. I mean, I think that's something that I really enjoyed, that I really like. Like that was something that like I really wanted to be good at. Striking the ball. So I've shooting drills, putting a wall up and shooting over the wall. Putting a penny on the corner of a goal and just knocking it down. And anything that had to do with shooting, I think that was like my favorite growing up. I never really been a juggler. Like I don't think that was ever like a thing that I really enjoyed. Because I think anybody can juggle the ball a million times and doesn't really like translate to the game.
Yeah.
But I think trying to like figure out a way to like have game realistic drills is probably the best ones. I think shooting was the best one for me.
Any tips for kids to help them adjust as the game gets faster and faster?
I think that, look, I feel like technical ability, I think for me, is the most important thing, right? I think that is probably the hardest thing to develop, is technique. Fitness, physical, all that stuff, you can always do it. You can always get better at it. As you get older, the game gets faster, right? Obviously, and I think that like if you're able to have that maturity at the young age where, you take 2 touches. For example, I remember I would tell, some of the kids, I'll be like, hey, like we only play 2 touches. And a lot of the times, like, a lot of the younger guys question, I did it too when I was younger. I'd be like, man, like, why are we doing 2 touches? I don't like restrictions. I want to dribble and I want to take, and I want to take all these touches, right? I'll tell you a little passage. So Danny Alves was doing a live the other day, and I was watching it. And they asked him and say, what makes Messi special? Like, why is Messi? And he said, look, Messi, the reason why Messi's so good is because Messi has oxygen in his brain when he needs to be crucial. And I thought about it, and I said, what is he talking about? Messi doesn't get tired, so he doesn't do things, he doesn't dribble 3, 4 players, at half field because he wants to do it or because, you know, that's something that like, no, he like does it when it's necessary. Does that make sense? So what does he do? And Daniel was explained, he goes, look, he passes the ball, you know, he kind of gets, if you see him, he's always kind of walking, right? You know, a lot of the time he's kind of walking, kind of like, he's never really like sprinting like crazy, right? So, you know, he takes 1-2 touches, 1-2 touches, and when he gets to the final third that he needs to be clinical and crucial, he has so much oxygen because he's not tired of doing something that he doesn't need to be doing, you know? So I think that like being able to understand that, you know, that like take 1 or 2 touches, be smart, you know, like the game of soccer is about being smart, right? Being, you know, being in the right place, following a tactical, you know, system. And so I think for me, you know, the older you're gonna get, the game's gonna get faster, and everyone's gonna be better, and everyone's gonna be stronger, and they're gonna think better. So if you're able to start a habit from the young age, like, you know, 1 or 2 touches, get yourself in the right position. Don't do things that are not necessary. Like pass it to a guy that you see. You don't have to do a trick play. You know, a lot of times we see some guys do a back flick or like something just crazy, and we're just like, it's so unnecessary. You don't need to do that because the game, you know what I mean? The game is not the game. That's not the game anymore, you know? So I think I think that's mainly it.
Last one is, can you explain a time that you overcame difficulty? I guess aside from the situation at Toronto FC when you got drafted.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was when I had my hip surgery right before I go to Colombia. In 2014, I played the last 3-4 months of my season with a torn labrum on my left hip, and at the time I didn't know what it was because I just felt pain on my groin. You know, I didn't really know what it was, and eventually, you know, the doctor said, "Listen, like we need to get an MRI because you have something, you know, like." But then at the same time, he goes, "Listen, if you have a tear and it shows in your MRI, like you're not gonna mentally, it's gonna mess you up so bad that like you're not gonna play." So he was like, "We can wait and you can play on and we can inject you," which at the time that's what I was doing. I was doing injections to be able to hold the pain. And I was with the national team at the time. We're about to play in the Gold Cup, etc. So I had to kind of wait. And then I had my surgery at the end of the season. You know, we took the MRI and I had literally my whole labrum was completely torn. And I had been playing like that for 6 months, which was crazy now that I look back at it. I think, you know, but I don't regret it because of 6 months when I played, you know, I played really well soccer. We beat 2 MLS teams to go into, you know, almost a semifinals of US Open Cup. So it was, you know, I don't regret it. But before I go to Colombia, I am only going 3 months like post operation, you know. So
Right.
I think that affected me so much because when I got to Colombia, I wasn't able to be who I was because my body wasn't ready to play at that level. And so I show up, you know, I train for a week, then I tear my quad, and then you know, another month goes by, then I come back again, then I strain my calf. So like I think that like when the president kind of comes and he goes, listen, like, you know, it's been 6 months and you haven't performed, because I knew I hadn't because of obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And you know, and they said, listen, we're gonna let you go, and you know, we'll pay out your contract or whatever. That was one of the obstacles that I felt that I made a mistake on my own. You know, that I didn't take care of myself because it was under my control to say I'm not ready to play yet. Let me like be ready. That was one. And I think the other one was when Atlanta United signs me in 2016. I was a second signing in the MLS history, and we weren't going to play until 2017. So they loaned me out to Tampa, and they gave me the choice, and they said, "Listen, we're gonna loan you out to the Charleston Battery." But at the time, the USL, I didn't feel like it was a strong league, you know, in 2016. So, you know, we're going to loan you out there. And then, you know, if you play 50% of the games, we're going to bring you back for 2017, guaranteed. And I said, no, I want to go to Tampa. You know, Tampa Bay was a big powerhouse in the NASL at the time. And, you know, the contract was something that I felt like it made sense for me and my family. So I chose to do that. And I didn't have the best year. But Atlanta United at the end of the season says, listen, like, we're not going to pick up your option for 2017. We're not going to bring you in. And I said, I mean, how are you not going to bring me in? It's you literally you can bring me in and take a look at me in preseason, you know, like, I mean, you have nothing to lose. You have my right to have another year under my contract. And they said, yeah, we're going to sign, Tata's going to sign Almiron, and he's going to be our playmaker, which that's kind of where we felt like you were going to play. I mean, Almiron is a world star. He plays in the EPL, and I think that he's one of the best players in Newcastle, obviously. But I could have been a backup, right? I could have fought for a spot, and I felt like when they turned their back on me was another time in my career when I doubted myself, and I said, man, like, am I not good enough? Like, is this something that I want to keep going, or should I stop? Or, because, there's good opportunities, and it's not really about, I don't think that it's really about talent, at the time when you're already a pro. It's just about them believing in you and giving you a chance to be able to succeed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, I think one of the takeaways from this for the players listening is definitely that, it's never smooth. It's never a smooth ride. It's how you deal with the highs, and the lows. It's not getting too excited with the highs, and, keeping true to yourself and staying confident through the lows as well,
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I think that there's more good than bad, right? And I think that if you're able to kind of take the hits, and I think just in life in general, I mean, in life, in what you do and what a doctor does, or anybody, like in life, you're going to take hits, and you got to just, be resilient and keep going, because if you don't keep going, someone else is going to take that opportunity, and they're going to succeed. I think that right now, going forward in my career, I think that I'm looking forward to it a lot. I think right now with the national team, we have so much to look forward to. And I think I told you, right now we're in the sixth spot for the World Cup qualifying group.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to play World Cup qualifiers, we're going to play the U.S. and America. They're going to come play in El Salvador. We're going to play Jamaica, Costa Rica, United States, Mexico. And being able to play those games in that environment, represent your country, and hope to go to a World Cup, we're going to fight to get one of those 3 spots. And I don't think that the national team that I mentioned, besides Mexico, is probably the one team that, everyone's really afraid of. I think the United States is not the strongest team. They didn't go to the last World Cup. Panama is out of the World Cup qualifying stage right now. Costa Rica is always good, Honduras, but, it's all possible. So, we might in a year or 2 years, and that's a dream of mine, to have a conversation again, and you're going to say, hey, listen, that's crazy that, you had that mentality and those dreams that, I mean, I might be able to go to World Cup, and that would be a way for me to have a career that I wanted.
That'd be amazing. Amazing. Last question just came in. Will you retire as an SF Glens USL player?
I mean, I think that would be amazing, man. I mean, I always said, and we talk about it a lot. I think that it's out of my. I can't fully understand why a city like San Francisco doesn't have a professional team. We talked about it.
We're working on it, Junior.
For whatever reason, which is great. I think that's I mean, I think that if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be you. I mean, I'm looking forward to that. And it'd be amazing for me to come back eventually, towards the end of my career, and say that I retire at home. I think that would be like the cherry on the cake for me. And why not retire as a SF Glens player? That would be cool.
I'd love to hear that. I'd love to hear it. Well, Junior, I really appreciate your time, man. It's always really inspiring hearing you. I mean, obviously, we've known each other for many years, but we don't often sit and talk about these types of things. So this has been a lot of fun for me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. No, thanks for the time, and appreciate all the people that tuned in.
Yeah, you have a lot of supporters in San Francisco, that's for sure. A lot of new young supporters as well. I promised Ryan that I would say this again. Go turn on your TVs to Telemundo right now for the 6 o'clock news, as they're going to show our Glens Academy U19 player Jose Madrigal announcing his college choice. If you don't have cable, it's channel 448 for DirecTV and Uverse, channel 48 for Dish 8299 and 718 for Xfinity. That's my plug for Ryan. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it, Junior.
All right, mate. Take care.
All right. Yep. See you, buddy. Talk soon, guys.